kind of always been, I guess, involved in not necessarily even anti-bullying, but just more strength of self. All of us were weirder kids who grew up in areas where we weren't necessarily the most popular people, or even if we weren't. I don't think that I know that Jinx was more of a quiet, kind of solitary, the traditional kind of like loner kid. I was more just, I guess I had like the rebellion complex, and I always wanted to kind of be the cigarette in the mouth, like James Dean kid or whatever, that innately sort of drove me away from, society, I guess, and particularly growing up in Cincinnati where I did, it wasn't ultimately to accept it. I was never like, trying to be the troublemaker, but I think I ultimately, everyone assumed that I was, going to burn their house down or, whatever. And I think my bass player Ashley, he told me when he was a kid they used to call him the rape your sister, kill your mother kid. That was what the people in his town referred to him as, meaning that, because he wore Slayer shirts, he was clearly a devil worshiper, he was clearly going to kill everyone and you should stay away from him. So I think that all of us grew up with that as kids, and the one thing we didn't have to deal with was the sort of the context of anti or whatever you want to call the online sort of, you can deal with something in school, and you can deal with work or wherever else, and then you go home, and now it's a constant thing. It never really ends. If you have an issue with someone, they're probably going to take it with you when you go home and everywhere else. So through the beginning of our career, we found it sort of important that we find a way of helping people have a voice in some capacity, particularly with the online hatred that people get, and then just in life. And so I don't think that we necessarily ever labeled it anti-bullying. It was more just, find your voice and find a way of rising out of the difficulty that you may feel in your life. And that's been kind of a constant in the lyrics for the band, and just the general message of the band. And it's something that I don't think we'll ever lose. It's important to us that, whether you consider yourself, a fan of rock and roll or punk rock or whatever subgenre or category you want to attach to it, we all are weirdos in a way, and we don't necessarily fit with the mold of convention. I think that everybody takes it differently. I always, maybe it's narcissism or I don't know what it was, but I always took the bullying as a sign of the people didn't understand. It was never that I was mad at myself. It was always like, oh, they just don't get it. Yeah. So then I think that's in retrospect, I think that's a pretty healthy perspective to have, and that's something that I want to try to invoke within our fans, is the idea that it's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with you. They just don't get what you are yet, and maybe one day they will, and if they don't, who cares? So I dealt with the usual stuff, the shit thrown at me and people, egging our house or whatever, the toilet paper in the yard when we wake up in the morning. But I think more than anything, it just sort of it developed a need for strength, or I was always a kid to fight back, so unfortunately I would get in a lot of fights and get in trouble and stuff as a kid. But I think that sometimes there's something that's lost in terms of a generation gap, where people that are older tend to forget how difficult it is to be an adolescent, and inversely, sometimes adolescents don't understand that it can also be difficult to be an adult and have people that are negative. Whether you're 45 years old or you're 14 years old, there's always going to be someone in your life who's dissenting against you in some capacity. So that's where music comes in for me, and that's where I think a lot of people find their connection. But that's why it's so cool for us. Like, obviously when we started the band, we were much more theatrical in terms of the imagery, and kind of as you grow, it's not necessarily that we've abandoned that end of the band, but you don't necessarily want to be a cartoon of yourself every day, and you do stuff and you move on and you try to build in different areas. We were a very theatrical band, so we try to do different stuff. But the coolest thing for me is that the level of confidence that it takes for, say, a 13-year-old girl to dress up head to toe in paint and makeup, and then take the bus wherever down to a concert and stand in line outside and that's something that kid might not have that voice when they're at school, to be so outward and to be so outgoing and to have something that's so theatrical about themselves. And so I think that the coolest thing for me, and of any anti-bullying or any sub part of what we do in terms of our musical prowess or the genre that we play or whatever, is the fact that this genre of music, unlike anything else that I can see in terms of pop culture, the music itself and the message of a band can evoke that level of being an extrovert that wouldn't necessarily be applicable to someone who's naturally an introvert. So you go out on the line and you see these kids that are head to toe in paint and makeup, and it's really cool because this is their one night. This is the night where they can be bigger than life. They say that the world is obviously a lot smaller now because you can sort of reach people in different parts of the world. So there is a huge benefit to that. When I was a kid and I loved the Alkaline Trio or I loved AFI or whatever. Like there wasn't necessarily a way of me immediately contacting someone that knew who Matt Skiba was.
Right.
You know, so it was a little bit more like I was an island. Now I have the opportunity, if I'm a kid, to go, okay, I like Black Veil Brides. I can talk to someone in Australia about that right now. So in that way, it's a positive thing for fans to connect and for people to connect based on their interests. But the negative side of that is that you are then susceptible to all the people who dislike your interest attacking you immediately, which is sort of the strangest thing to me about the whole concept of, you know, I saw yesterday, it was like a 45-year-old man on my Instagram who was just leaving angry comments at you know, my pictures and everything else, and it's the most insane and unjustifiable thing to me to go to something that you don't like and then hang out there in the comments section to anger people. It seems incredibly childish, and you don't. And my point that I always try to make is that you don't often see people that are truly a fan of something go to other things and talk shit about that. You will rarely see a Black Veil Brides fan go on, you know, whatever other band's site and go, this is terrible, this is good, because they're busy caring about the thing that they like as opposed to wasting their time. So I think that the internet and the advent of social media allows for time wasters to apply their time wasting to hatred of other things. It's a whole troll and it entertains people, and you know, to people. Some people get off on upsetting other people. That's just natural. People. There are certain people who are assholes. It's fine, but the internet now allows for someone to be an asshole to everyone in the world 24 hours a day without any real repercussion. Because, I mean, we've all seen with catfish and everything else. It's so easy to create an alternate sort of personality on the internet and hide behind that and just say whatever you want. I mean, tonight I could make a page with some random person on this tour's picture, and I could find your Instagram and I could negatively comment on everything, and you would never necessarily know what I'm doing, but for some reason it entertains me. I don't see that. I don't see why it would be so entertaining, but I understand, you know, the need to be, I guess, a dick in some capacity. Well, you know, I think that there certainly is a place for people who are I guess lost in some way, where you know, you don't necessarily know where you're going to turn to make it make yourself feel better, or make everything all right. And so in that way, bands or, you know, celebrities or pseudo celebrities, whatever you want to say, present an opportunity to attach an issue. If I'm there and I'm saying don't hurt yourself, and you are hurting yourself, you can then attach that to me, and that's fine, because my thing has always been, I would rather carry the weight of those things for people than have them deal with them themselves. Because even though I never got to communicate my feelings to, you know, whoever, Dave Banyan or these people when I was a kid, they always felt like I could listen to that record and put that on there and it was fine for a bit. So in that capacity, I think that it's okay. There's obviously the people who, like anything in life, will go, okay, well, this is a thing that clearly gets attention, so I'm going to say something. But fortunately, at this point in my career, I'm not completely jaded yet, and I like to believe that there are certain people that really do have an issue and they want you to help, and we try to help in every way we can. I mean, I think that it's unfair sometimes. People will sling mud at artists who can't respond to everything that exists. You know, I saw my buddy Ronnie Rack, he always gets shit because he never talks to, you know, he never gets to talk to enough people. There's always someone who's mad, and we get the same stuff, and it's not really necessarily our responsibility to speak to everyone, because I am not a puppet, I'm not a dancing monkey, I'm a human being who plays music, and I want to do my best to help you. But if I can't always be everywhere all the time, it doesn't make me less than what I said I was. I never claimed to be a hero. I just want to be something that can help people in some capacity that are experiencing similar things to what I grew up with. So I think as long as you're coming from a genuine place, to sort of, I guess, more succinctly answer, I think as long as the person that they're commenting with or trying to talk to comes from a genuine place, it's completely healthy to want to expel those emotions onto them.